There is a specific kind of man who makes a room go quiet the moment he stops reacting to it. You've met him. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't flinch when he's provoked. He doesn't explain himself, and he never lets you see what he's feeling. And that is exactly why he's untouchable. Machiavelli understood something the anxious and the loud never will. A calm mind is not weakness. It's a loaded weapon. A cold heart is not cruelty. It's the refusal to be manipulated through your own emotions. And ruthless discipline is the price of never being at anyone's mercy again. 3 traits, 1 transformation. This is the philosophy that builds the men no one can touch. And it starts with the first thing you have to kill. Here is the lie they raised you on, and it has kept you reachable your entire life. They told you that a good man is an open man, that your emotions should be visible, your reactions honest, your heart worn where everyone can see it. That transparency is virtue, and control is repression. So you spent years being readable, and every person who wanted to move, you learned exactly which string to pull, because you handed them the map. You called it being genuine. The people who studied you called it being predictable. You didn't find this video by accident. Some part of you is exhausted from being so easily reached, from the way a single comment can ruin your afternoon, the way you rehearse conversations, the way other people's moods become your weather. You came looking for the off switch, and by the end of this, you'll understand that it was never one switch. It's 3 shifts that, together, build a man no one can manipulate, provoke, or move against his will. The mindset the thumbnail names too powerful is not an exaggeration. It's a warning about what you become when the reachable man finally dies. Understand what Machiavelli is actually prescribing, because 5 centuries of readers have flattened it into a slogan. He's describing 2 capacities that must live in one man. The fox is perception, the cold, unclouded ability to see the trap while it's still being set, to read the manipulation before you've stepped into it. The lion is presence, the gravity that makes people think twice before testing you at all. And here is the part almost everyone misses. You cannot be the fox while you are emotionally flooded. A man drowning in his own reactions cannot see the trap, because his feelings are the trap. The calm mind is what makes the fox's sight possible. The cold heart is what keeps the lion from being led around by his own hunger. Discipline is the forge that produces both. This is dark psychology in its truest sense. Not tricks played on others, but the study of how power actually operates beneath the story we're sold, and how to stop being its victim. So here's what this is, plainly. I'm going to give you the 3-part philosophy of the men no one can touch. The calm mind, the cold heart, the ruthless discipline, as an operating system for emotional sovereignty, not a costume. I'm going to show you which of the 3 you already have and which one you're missing. And I'm going to warn you about the exact point where this philosophy turns poisonous, where cold becomes frozen, where discipline becomes self-punishment, where a man mistakes a prison for a throne. Because getting this wrong doesn't make you powerful. It makes you brittle and alone. While you tell yourself you're strong, by the end, you'll know the difference, and you'll know which of the 3 you have to build first. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a untouchable in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. Before any of the 3 traits can be built, something has to die. And this is the death nobody prepares you for, because it feels like losing yourself when it's actually the birth of yourself. What has to die is the part of you that needs a reaction, the part that needs to be seen, needs to be right, needs the last word, needs the other person to understand, agree, approve, apologize. That part has been running your life from underneath, and it is the single access point every manipulator, every provoker, every energy parasite has ever used to move you. As long as you need something from the exchange, even just the need to be understood, you are reachable. You can be baited. You can be steered. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your reactivity was never sincerity. It was need wearing sincerity's clothes. When someone provoked you and you fired back, you told yourself you were standing up for yourself. But a man who truly didn't need their approval wouldn't have needed to respond at all. The comeback, the defense, the explanation, every one of them was a confession that they still had leverage over you. Your reaction was the receipt proving they'd reached you. Sit in that for a second, because it stings. Most of what you've called passion, honesty, and standing your ground was underneath a nervous system that couldn't tolerate being misjudged. You weren't defending your truth. You were defending against the unbearable feeling of being seen wrongly, and that intolerance was the exact handle they gripped. Now exhale, because here's the liberation. The moment the reactive self dies, you become unreachable through the one door everyone used. You can be provoked and feel the bait land and simply decline to bite, not because you're suppressing rage, but because there's genuinely nothing in you that needs to win the exchange. Silence stops being something you endure and becomes something you wield. This is the first death, and every man no one can touch has died it. Kill the need for a reaction, and you've built the foundation the three traits stand on. Refuse to, and everything after this is just a mask over a man who can still be moved, which brings us to the first trait built on that grave. The calm mind is the first pillar, and almost everyone misunderstands what it is. They think calm is the absence of feeling. It's not. Calm is the presence of a gap, a widening space between what happens to you and how you respond to it. The reactive man has no gap. Stimulus and response are welded together, so he's essentially a machine anyone can operate by pressing the right button. The calm man has inserted distance into that circuit, and in that distance lives every ounce of his power. Here is the mechanism, because this is depth psychology, not a mood. When you are emotionally flooded, your perception narrows to a tunnel. You literally cannot see the wider board, the other person's motive, the trap in the offer, the manipulation in the flattery, because your own arousal is consuming all your processing. This is why the anxious man keeps walking into the same ambushes. He can't see them because he's too busy feeling. The calm mind restores your sight. It's what lets you be the fox. A man who can stay level while being provoked can read the entire situation while his opponent is lost in the emotion he was trying to trigger. And that asymmetry is the whole game. He who stays calm sees. He who reacts is seen. And the calm mind does something to other people that nothing else does. It unnerves them. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding them the response they came for, and they don't know what to do with the silence. They escalate, and you stay level, and your levelness makes them feel, accurately, that they've lost control of the exchange. This is quiet dominance. You didn't fight them. You simply refused to be moved, and your stillness became a kind of gravity the room organizes itself around. Emotional regulation isn't a wellness practice here. It's the foundation of command. But calm alone is not enough, and here's the limit. A calm mind that still secretly needs people's warmth can be reached through affection instead of anger. Flattered, charmed, guilted into things a provoked man would refuse. Calm protects you from the stick. It does nothing about the carrot. And the carrot is how the truly skilled manipulators work, which is why the second trait exists, and why it's the one that scares people the most. Say the words, cold heart, and most people picture cruelty. That's the misunderstanding this section exists to destroy, so hear the definition precisely. A cold heart is not the inability to feel. It's the refusal to be governed by feeling. It's emotional sovereignty, the capacity to experience an emotion fully and still not be commanded by it. The warm-hearted man, in the naive sense, is ruled by his affections, and anything that rules you can be used to move you. The cold heart, correctly understood, means your emotions become information you consult rather than a master you obey. Here's why this is defensive, not predatory. The most effective manipulation in existence doesn't come through anger. It comes through your own warmth. The guilt trip weaponizes your compassion. The love bomb weaponizes your need to be wanted. The sob story weaponizes your empathy. Every one of these attacks succeeds by hijacking a good emotion and steering you with it against your own interest toward theirs. A cold heart is the one defense that works because it lets you feel the compassion, the attraction, the sympathy. And still ask the fox's question, what is this feeling being used to make me do? You don't shut the heart off. You put a strategist between the feeling and the action. That is what makes you impossible to manipulate through your own decency. Now here is the reversal, and it's the most important warning in this entire philosophy, so do not glide past it. There is a counterfeit cold heart that looks identical from the outside and is its exact opposite from within. The real cold heart is chosen. You can still feel everything. You've simply stopped being ruled by it, and you can open fully to the few who've earned it. The counterfeit cold heart isn't chosen. It's a scar. It's a man who got hurt so badly he amputated his capacity to feel and now calls the numbness strength. That isn't sovereignty. It's a wound pretending to be a philosophy. And the tell is precise. The truly cold-hearted man, in Machiavelli's sense, becomes more capable of deep loyalty and real love because he chooses it deliberately, from strength for people who deserve it. The counterfeit becomes incapable of it entirely and mistakes his incapacity for power. So ask yourself the brutal question, can you still open completely to the right person, or have you just gone numb and dressed it up as discipline? Cold by choice is a throne. Cold by wound is a cell. They are not the same, and only one of them is powerful, which means neither the calm nor the cold can be sustained without the third trait, the one that separates the men who talk about this from the men who actually become it. Here is where philosophy becomes flesh, and where almost everyone fails, because the calm mind and the cold heart are not switches you flip. They are capacities you build, and they can only be built by one thing: ruthless discipline. But understand exactly where the ruthlessness is aimed, because this is the line that keeps the whole philosophy clean. The discipline is ruthless toward yourself, specifically toward your own excuses. It is never cruelty toward others. It is the total refusal to negotiate with your own weakness. Think about what actually keeps you reachable. It's not that you don't know you should stay calm. It's that in the moment, you let yourself off the hook. It's not that you don't know the guilt trip is manipulation. It's that you cave because holding the boundary is uncomfortable. Every place you get moved is a place where you accepted an excuse from yourself. Ruthless discipline is the practice of no longer accepting them. It's the man who feels the full pull of the reaction and does not indulge it, feels the full weight of the comfortable choice and takes the hard one anyway, not once, but as a standing policy toward his own life. He has become someone he can't talk out of his own standards. And here's why this specific trait is the source of the other two. Discipline is what creates the gap of the calm mind, because staying level under provocation is a rep you have to have practiced 10,000 times before it's automatic. Discipline is what maintains the cold heart's sovereignty, because feeling an emotion fully and still not obeying it is the hardest self-control there is. The Stoics understood this. Freedom is not doing whatever you feel. Freedom is no longer being compelled by what you feel, and that freedom is purchased only with relentless self-command. A man with a disciplined relationship to his own impulses cannot be controlled by anyone else, because the lever everyone reaches for Your inability to master yourself isn't there anymore. But, and this is the second reversal, so feel the floor move. Ruthless discipline has its own poisonous twin, and it destroys more ambitious men than laziness ever will. That's the next thing you have to see, because if you build the three traits without seeing it, you won't become powerful. You'll become a beautifully disciplined prison. Everything I've given you, the calm, the cold, the discipline, can curdle into its own shadow, and the shadow is so convincing that most men who reach this stage never realize they've stopped becoming powerful and started becoming brittle. Here is the counterfeit in full. The calm mind hardens into emotional deadness, not a gap between stimulus and response, but no signal at all. A man so walled off, he's stopped perceiving his own life. The cold heart, as we saw, calcifies from chosen sovereignty into a scar that can no longer love anyone. And the ruthless discipline turns inward as self-punishment. A man flogging himself through a joyless existence, mistaking his own misery for strength, driving away everyone who might have mattered because warmth now feels like weakness to him. Put those three counterfeits together and you don't get Machiavelli's untouchable man. You get an isolated, frozen, self-hating machine who calls his prison a philosophy and dies alone, insisting it was power. And it's seductive precisely because it's adjacent to the real thing. The counterfeit and the genuine article look nearly identical from across the room. Both are calm, both are hard to read, both are disciplined. The difference is entirely internal, and it comes down to one question. Is your control in service of your life, or has it replaced your life? The sovereign man uses his calm, his coldness, and his discipline to protect a rich inner world and the few relationships he's chosen. The counterfeit has used them to wall off an inner world that's gone empty and calls the emptiness peace. One is a fortress with a living king inside. The other is a fortress guarding a grave. So here is how you keep yourself on the right side of the line, and you must install this, or the whole philosophy will betray you. Real power is warm on the inside and controlled on the outside, a man of deep feeling who has simply mastered its expression and refused its manipulation. The counterfeit is cold all the way through. The genuine article withdraws from what drains him and moves fully toward what he values. The counterfeit withdraws from everything and values nothing. Watch which one you're building constantly, because the drift from sovereignty to sickness is silent and slow, and no one around you will warn you. They'll just quietly leave, and you'll tell yourself their leaving proves you were right. The most powerful men are not the ones who feel nothing. They are the ones who feel everything and are ruled by none of it. Hold that, because it's the entire difference between too powerful and simply broken. So let's assemble the three into the single presence they were always meant to become, because separately they're traits, together they're a transformation. Picture the man who has all three correctly built. He walks into the room and doesn't scan it for approval, because the reactive self that needed approval is dead. He's provoked, and the provocation finds no handle, because the calm mind put a gap where the button used to be. He's flattered, guilted, charmed, and he feels all of it and moves anyway according to his own read, because the cold heart made him sovereign over his own emotions instead of their servant. And underneath all of it runs the discipline that built the calm and maintains the cold, a relentless self-command that means no one, not a manipulator, not a crowd, not his own worst impulses, gets to operate him. That is quiet dominance, not the loud dominance of the man who has to prove it, the quiet kind of the man who no longer needs to. And notice what this does to the people around you, because it's remarkable. You don't have to dominate anyone. Your refusal to be moved becomes the most powerful thing in the room by default. People raise their voices, and yours stays level, and they feel, correctly, that they've lost. They reach for the emotional levers and find them disconnected. They test you, and the test simply fails. And after enough failed tests, they stop testing and start deferring. Not because you demanded it, but because a man who cannot be moved becomes the fixed point everyone else orients around. This is the leverage the anxious and the loud will never have. While they're spending their energy trying to control the room, you control it by being the one thing in it that can't be controlled. And this is the meaning hidden in that thumbnail. Too powerful mindset. It was never about being powerful over other people. It's that a man who has mastered himself, this completely becomes, to the people used to moving others through emotion, genuinely too powerful to handle. Because every tool they own works by reaching you, and you've closed every door they know how to open. Most people run on borrowed emotional control that collapses the moment they're provoked. You'd be running on your own, generated from within, and that self-generation is the whole source of the gravity. But hold the guardrail even here, at the summit. This only stays power as long as there's a living man inside the fortress. Quiet dominance with a rich inner life is sovereignty. Quiet dominance over an empty inner life is just a well-defended tomb. Build the calm, the cold, and the discipline in service of a life worth protecting, and you become untouchable. Build them to hide from a life you've given up on, and you become the counterfeit. The three traits are neutral. What you protect with them is everything. So here is the truth the whole philosophy was building toward. The men no one can touch are not the men who feel nothing. They're the men who killed their need for a reaction, built a gap where their impulses used to rule them, made themselves sovereign over their own emotions instead of its servant, and forged all of it with a discipline aimed ruthlessly at their own excuses and never at other people. A calm mind, so you can see the trap. A cold heart, so you can't be moved through your own decency. A ruthless discipline, so the lever of your own weakness is no longer there for anyone to pull. That is Machiavelli's fox and lion in one man, the perception to see and the presence that makes people think twice. And it is available to you the moment you're willing to let the reachable version of yourself die and understand what that makes you. Not cruel, not empty, sovereign. A man of deep feeling who is ruled by none of it. A man who can be alone without breaking and connected without being controlled. The world will feel it and reach for the nearest word. They'll feel the stillness, the unbothered clarity, the way you simply cannot be destabilized anymore. And they'll call it confidence. They won't know it was the death of the man who needed their reaction that built it. So if this landed, if you felt the reachable version of yourself flinch and recognized exactly which of the three traits you still have to build, comment the word untouchable. Not as a boast, as a marker in time, the moment you decided to stop being so easily moved and started building the mind, the heart, and the discipline of a man no one can operate. And if you want to keep building from here, deeper into Machiavellian strategy, emotional sovereignty, the real architecture of self-mastery, then subscribe, because this is the only place that treats these traits as a philosophy to live by, not a costume to wear. This is the room for the ones building something the loud and the anxious will never comprehend. Picture it a year from now, already true. The people who used to move you with a word will notice their words don't land anymore, and they won't be able to name what changed. The few who are real will feel you become more present, more solid, more genuinely there, because a man who can't be manipulated has all his energy back to give freely to what he actually chooses. You'll move through the world as the fixed point others orient around, calm where they're anxious, sovereign where they're ruled, and they'll assume you were simply born this way. They won't know you built it trait by trait, out of the ruins of the man who used to need them. And whatever you do, don't stop now. The on-screen video matters more than you think. What you've begun to build here has a next chapter, and you don't want to meet it unprepared. Trust me, I'll see you there. See what others miss, know what others fear, become who others can't.